It's time for Refresh the Cache, the Dynamics 365 Portals podcast on the CRM Audio Network, with your hosts, Microsoft MVPs, Nick Dolman, Colin Vermander, and Sean Tabor.
This episode is brought to you by Dynamics 365 User Group. D365 CRM is the world's most influential user group community of Microsoft Dynamics 365 and CRM users and partners. Across the globe, members share a common goal of maximizing and advancing the performance of Microsoft Dynamics 365 and CRM so that individuals and companies can improve operations, overcome obstacles, and exceed goals. We thank D365 UG for sponsoring Refresh the Cache.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of Refresh the Cache, the Portals podcast on the CRM Audio Network. We're here today at Extreme 365 in Austin, Texas. My name, Nick Dolman. You can follow me on Twitter at ReadyXRM. I'm the host, one of the hosts, of Refresh the Cache, and my other host is here with me.
Hi there, guys. It's Colin Vermander, and you can find me at Collin_ on Twitter. And we also have a very special guest here with us at Extreme.
Yeah, we have our on this podcast, our second guest from Microsoft. We had Dilip on a few weeks ago, and now we have Nikita Polyakov. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Excellent. So Nikita, give a little bit of an introduction of who you are, and yeah.
Well, glad to be on the show. Thank you for the invite. My name is Nikita Polyakov. I'm a solution architect in the FastTrack team in Business Application Group. So I help out with our customers be successful with our Dynamics 365 platform. And one of the things I get to do and volunteer for is helping out our team globally with all of their portal customer opportunities and challenges. So definitely have a lot of lessons learned on challenges. But I've been with Dynamics for quite some time. In fact, my introduction to Dynamics was building a custom portal for Dynamics, and I was like, hey, this Dynamics thing is kind of cool. And then I spent about 7 years in Dynamics through all the way from like functional to practice leadership time, and been with Microsoft for about 3 years in this group now.
Excellent, cool. So you have quite a bit of background with portal projects as well, and I'm sure with the FastTrack team you could probably share some pretty interesting stories. So with some of those experiences, Nikita, what are some of the things that people that are beginning to get into portals they should look out for, and things they should watch out for, and things that will help them be successful with their portal projects?
Well, I'd say, that's a great question. First of all, I think it's experience. Touching the product and getting to know the product, attending any conferences where you can go and kind of see the best practices, or getting hands-on training. If you got no experience, Portals is definitely not one of those things where you just kind of roll the team into a hot project on the ground. First of all, if you're already just rolling the team onto a project for Portals, you already missed the first step. That's I think is a kind of requirement is, did you do the fit gap? The great thing about Portals is it's called Portals. The bad thing about Portals is it's called Portals, and it can be many different things to many different people. So even for early envisioning and pre-sale stages, I think what's usually missed is a little bit of a more thorough fit gap. And you can't do fit gap if you don't know the product. So it kind of always circles back to, you got to touch it and got to have experience. And when you don't have that experience, or you haven't done that fit gap analysis and expectation setting, then you kind of roll the team onto the project. They don't know the technology. They get a customer requirement, try to solve the customer requirement that the portal might not meet, and this is where you get to tickets and things like that. And basically, if you and your customer get pissed off enough, you'll eventually talk to me, and it's probably not in the good sense when we're kind of discussing, well, how did we end up here in a dead end? So I think it goes back to education.
Cool. And I think so what you're describing, a lot of times when you get involved, you're kind of on rescue missions.
Yeah, it's rescue missions. Either our deal can't move forward because we can't make the Microsoft Portal product do specific things, or we're near UAT and I have challenges of executing a final requirement or two that is going to have a challenge. Or I even had an even more interesting. I had a customer that spent nearly $1 million on a portal. So by the way, good partner opportunity, lots of services revenue opportunity. You do want to take that seriously as a proper workload, have a trained team kind of execute on that in a professional manner. But the experience there is I had a customer call me and say, okay, well, does this meet best practices? We don't have published guidance on best practices. Probably, my little sessions are about as close as you can get to, a collection of go-dos and check this, check that. But they basically said, hey, I'm kind of feeling squirrely. I just spent $1 million on this thing. What do you think? We just had to look at it and say, okay, well, you built some custom things, but those were your requirements, and hopefully you've addressed with your partner a support program for this, because this is not something we can take on and get supported. So they had some customizations and custom views and custom forms that they've done to meet the requirements that they demand the partner to execute on. That's probably how it got to $1 million per project, because they replaced a lot of the UI. I said, I think it meets your needs, and I think you'll be happy with this, but just understand that you will have to engage ongoing technical support coverage for those specific customizations that you've done, and make sure there's knowledge transfer, documentation of what you've built and the asset that you have at hand. So that's more of the really interesting ones that I've had recently that was just kind of asking, hey, was this a good idea? I'm like, are you asking now?
It's the kind of cart before the horse. And I think that's not always limited to portals, right? Like we've seen Dynamics 365 projects in the same boat where, they start building before their blueprints are dry, kind of thing. Yeah. Or they're in a process where they're not even into an Agile process either, or they have these preconceived notions and they just start building. Now, I totally agree. I've been working with Dynamics for many years, and then when I first started getting portals, I found it a very huge challenge to learn myself, because it was such a different way of thinking and a different way of planning around that kind of thing. So from what you've seen, and I'm sure you're involved with partners getting educated and things like that, but what are some of the key skill sets that, and obviously I think knowing Dynamics 365 is like critical to do a portal correctly. But what are some of the other skills that are maybe not specific to the Dynamics that in combination would be a good foundation for someone to learn portals?
It's a great question, and definitely you guys add your points of view. I mean, from my point of view, is the reason why I'm successful at looking at portals and being able to quickly evaluate kind of what's happening is because I bring a .NET web development experience. So what I call it in my sessions is you want to have the web front end skills. So web front-end skills is a front-end HTML, JavaScript, CSS person that can articulate and bring together their true web development skills to a project. And that's, I think, what makes a successful portal project. So if you can go and query your team on the project and say, hey, who's got background in web development? Who's got background, and maybe you're a .NET or even Cold Fusion developer before you became a Dynamics consultant, right? Because unfortunately, the reality is, in a lot of times, you get somebody that could be a technical consultant in Dynamics. Their whole experience in JavaScript or their whole experience in .NET is laser focused and birthed within the realm of Dynamics, where we tell you, don't touch the DOM, don't do those things. They probably don't do a lot of CSS, maybe light CSS in a web resource, and their JavaScript experience is using the XRM object to interact with our experience. When you have to take that further and say, okay, now I need to use jQuery, and I need to call an external web service, and I need to understand how to use a Bootstrap element to do some rendering. That's a lot of times a little bit of a stretch from somebody who's could be actually a capable multi-year veteran of Dynamics implementation. So definitely watch out. But you can just ask. I mean, either work cross domain. If your organization has an app dev team that does app dev like .NET projects and enterprise solutions, line of business applications, work with them to cross-train and maybe borrow some resources and kind of get that, or just ask, hey, who has the skill sets in web front end, the CSS, the jQuery experience on your team? And I think those could be opportunity people that you can find, and that's who would start really your center of excellence within your partner or your customer community organization. You say, okay, I need somebody that's got those web skills. I need somebody that's got the dynamic skills. I need somebody that maybe is quick on design and articulation. Put them together, have them kind of hackathon some stuff together, and they start your domain knowledge. Give them an email alias or Yammer or Teams experience, so they can go and start doing knowledge sharing and helping out both the delivery teams and the pre-sales teams as they start coming in and saying, hey, I think I have a portal opportunity. Does this make sense? They can go to this kind of knowledge center that you start putting together and developing. And I think that would lead to successful outcomes at partners, developing that basically portal practice within your organization
right,
knowledge share, the lessons learned, and you kind of create this this area where, as you're executing on those projects, you have a place to put the knowledge back and do knowledge transfer, the brown bags, lunch and learns, whatever you call them, things like that. But you can start with grabbing the people that got that experience, giving them a day off to sit down and basically do a portal in a day type of a thing. Build a portal for your customer. Don't have to launch it, but touch the technology and start that kind of hands-on experience within your organization.
Yeah, I think for me, I came from the exact same background in terms of being a web developer, specifically ASP.NET, and it was very much a natural fit to fall into portals. Dynamics was really just a SQL database with a front-end UI layer on it. It obviously had a whole bunch of other stuff, but it was a much easier intro, I think, for myself. And when we do a lot of the development work, we look for developers with web development skills and not necessarily dynamic skills. It's really hard to find people with dynamic skills and then train them into Portal. It's a little easier to find somebody with web skills and train them into dynamics. So
yeah, I've seen it on my end too. Like we had where I used to be working. We had a pretty good development team, and one of the developers on my team, she actually was not really involved in many of the Portal projects early on. She was doing the regular dynamic stuff like plugins, JavaScript, all that fun stuff, and then kind of got pulled into doing some Portal work. And she said, "Oh well, in my last job, I actually built the website, so I know CSS really well." And like, why didn't you tell me this earlier? So we got her ramped up on Portals, and man, it was like putting putting gas on a fire pit, because the stuff that she was able to produce in Portals absolutely blew me away, just based on some advanced CSS skills that, like, I can muddle my way through CSS, and but this, you can just tell you have the right skills and you can apply that. You can do a lot with the Portal project. Now, the other thing you mentioned, Nikita, too, that I kind of touched on too, is I think very typical in partners that we've seen, and I know that I've been involved with. Sometimes some of these technologies or modules or things are sometimes allocated to a specific person. Like, oh, we have this lady does field service, and oh, there's our SSRS guy. And I have been in organizations. I have been the quote unquote the Portals guy. But I think you hit the nail on the head. Portals is really something that needs its own team around, because there are, like Dynamics 365, there are specific skill sets that I think you can learn a lot of it. But the more different team players you have in building a portal, could really make this successful. So I echo your sentiment there about partners building this Portal center of excellence, and not just having a Portals guy or a Portals girl kind of thrown in a project. And then even I've also, I think we've seen projects too where, Dynamics 365 is the core, and then, we're going to tack a portal onto this. And those are always some of the gray hairs in my head are the result of that kind of method of thinking, where I think Portals almost in some cases needs to be the center and Dynamics almost periphery to that. Just wonder what Collin and Nikita, your further thoughts on that.
I mean, as ADX Studio and the Doxio, we'd often end up partnering. We would be the Portal shop, and we would partner with another Dynamics partner that would be doing all the Dynamics side, the model building, and all the internal stuff, focus things. There is a lot you need to take into account when building data models that are also going to work for Portal projects. So it can be a tough partnership if you're just the Portal team or the Portal guy coming in and trying to work after somebody else, because you might need to revise a bunch of things. I'm sure, Nikita, you've run into projects, taken over projects from on the FastTrack team that have been interesting. Have any interesting stories that you can
absolutely.
share?
I mean, I've got a lot of stories from experiences, but I mean, like, relevant case in point would be, we had a large organization, a multinational, and they wanted to do a case management portal, and they said, I need a 3-second case create. Like, that's what users expect. That's the experience I expect. So I don't know what kind of crazy caching or whatever, like, Microsoft, you make this do. And, I'm getting a 20-second case create experience here, so you need to turn off your servers to 11. Well, by the way, there is no button for that. I will tell you that right away.
Is there a dial?
Yeah, there's no dial. Everybody gets the same quality production-grade portal experience, and we got organizations that are serving millions of citizens to hundreds of thousands of employees running service. But expectation-wise, you're not going to have a 3-second case create form unless your dynamics performance on the case create itself is probably around 1.5 to 2 seconds. So how do you get that, and what causes that, right? Well, you got your real-time workflows and synchronous plugins that are attached to what? Well, as you were talking about exactly, well, if you're coming in and bolting on a portal on top of the tail end of a customer engagement, you probably got a bunch of plugins or workflows that are executing on a create or an update that are potentially maybe not even, this is almost like plugin and workflow best practice, like make sure they're triggering off the right changes, right? So otherwise you can have things that are holding back the case create transaction that's now ballooning to 5, 7 seconds, whatever it is you're doing on Dynamics side. Well, frankly, Portal is just a shim on top of Dynamics. So your CRUD operations outside of read that are cached are actually happening in real time in Dynamics. And the user experience is real time. So you go to that case create form, you fill it out, you click submit. You got a synchronous plugin there doing a bunch of stuff that might not be even Portal relevant. You need to scope that down so it's not, first of all, not even executing and holding up that transaction. And if it has to, you do need to be aware that as that's synchronous, the user is literally sitting there with a hold and a spinning thing on their experience. So it's almost like if you didn't think about that in iterational design, you might have to be going in there and backing out and scoping things a little tighter if you're sharing an entity between Dynamics and the portal, like case entity, for example, would be a good use case just to kind of review. Since you're literally transacting on Dynamics data as portal users, well, what is that doing? Do I need to exclude or branch some of this logic and code potentially? So it's just one of many examples of the different thinking and approach you have to come in and start building when you're doing a portal. It's not a bolt-on. It's not like a new email editor that you can learn on the project within a few hours and just be successfully executing. Yeah, it's kind of its own workload.
So another thought around this too, like, and I'm obviously we're fans of portals and we've built some pretty interesting projects, but is there situations that you run into where looking at the client requirements and it is an external facing web experience where portals may not be the right answer for that, and what are some best practices and approaches on that? Could portals augment something, or should this be a case of either a third-party product or maybe we need to build something ground up in Azure or something like that? Is there, I don't know, I'm just trying to think if...
I don't think there's a hard and fast line where to draw the line, but I'm definitely maybe an unpopular supporter of portals does not have to be the answer for all portal experiences for our customers. And that's usually kind of the challenges that I get is, I was like, well, we need portal, hey, Dynamics portals, boom. Okay, did you look at the feature set? Does that meet your fit? A good popular question that I ask my customers, when at least hopefully we're still in early discussions with them, is, well, what's phase 2 and 3 look like for you? Because you could start even with a simple, we just need case management and knowledge collection. Right. Okay, that's a very traditional classic scenario we can handle pretty well. Well, then in phase 2, what I really want to do is, when I create a case, I want to submit my serial number, and then that goes into my ERP system and pulls out my entitlements and warranty information from this external system. I was like, and then what's in phase 3? Well, phase 3, we also call in our HR system and go into that and pull out things. Okay, well, Dynamics Portal sits on top of Dynamics data and does not have inbox integration points to external data sources. It's not involved with the value propositions of how we position the portal technology. So in those scenarios, I don't have a specific line that you draw in the sand that says, hey, we're not a fit. What you have to articulate to your customer is say, okay, you need to know that you're consciously going to make that decision to move forward by adding a companion web service that you're not going to have to build.
Yep.
Right? That's going to call that third-party service to do that inventory part match. As you do that, you need to understand that you need to instrument, load test, and provide a support matrix of who's going to support that specific add-on that you've built. So Microsoft will make sure that our portal continues running, is bug-free, and our out-of-the-box experiences we've delivered stay working. This experience that you've just added to that will not be in scope of Microsoft support. So who is? And so as your customer, you need to kind of say, hey, we're making a conscious decision to move forward with this. We have value propositions for portal. We like the multi-language capability, the content management, whatever the value points that actually are true within why you're starting on the portals as the foundation. And then say, okay, for this one extra thing that we're doing, now that we start bolting on that experience, I know I'm going to need to buy probably an extended support contract from my partner. That's really important. I see that missing all the time, right? And if I didn't do that, where was my knowledge transfer? Did I have requirements documented? And I mean like technical documentation, not like requirements, more like post documentation of like, okay, this is how this works. Here's where to triage. Maybe I even included some instrumentation. Maybe I added Azure App Insights to make sure I understand that if that web service, somebody went into Azure Portal and like pulled the slider back on its consumption, and all of a sudden that's taken now 4 or 5 times longer, your portal user is going to start reporting and saying, hey, that case create is slowing down because what's happening is that part lookup web service is down or non-responsive. Well, we'll find that and help you lead to that answer from Microsoft support, but you probably lost days in that if you didn't have documentation of, hey, what actually all happens that's custom. And I had some knowledge transfer, and people knew that, oh, you know what, we should really look at that parts web service and make sure that's performing. That's not. Why not? And let's go fix that rather than kind of that. So it kind of gets extreme. So customers, I think it's still okay as long as they consciously and making an educated decision to move forward. Where I would caution is if majority of your feature set now becomes a custom web service, data that's not in Dynamics. I actually had to go back to a customer a year ago that I've talked to that said, well, we want React.js front end, customized user experience, and then long term, most of the data sources available through the portal are not in Dynamics. And kind of rewinds back, it's like, I've seen so many pain points in support matrix of this experience. Yes, you can, but probably not a good idea to move forward.
Why are you doing this?
Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Well, we really want Microsoft Portal. I was like, we all want that, but it might not be the right thing.
Just put a sticker on it and just tell them, yeah, this is Portals.
Sure. It's Portals for Dynamics 365. You're using Dynamics 365, and there's a portal experience, and you are successful in that.
Cool. Some of the other stuff I want to chat with you about, Nikita, is so what we've seen with Portals after the ADX Studio acquisition and the release Portals, we probably saw a pretty, I don't know, kind of a long gap, maybe almost a year. Nothing new was coming with Portals. It looked like it was kind of solidified. This is what's there. And then in the October release, which has just passed, we got a whole bunch of new features. And a few weeks ago, Collin got a chance to talk to Dilip, who dropped a whole bunch of exciting, Christmas presents for us, basically.
Yeah.
What's some of the stuff that's coming out now that's in the future that is public knowledge that you're excited about?
Well, I think, and I think Dilip mentioned that, or at least was leading to it. So the Portals team moved under the platform team.
Right.
I think that's fantastic things.
Yeah.
So no alarms there. It's actually all exciting things for what that means for us. That means further acceleration. I think in a short term, it's maybe a little bit of deceleration as they kind of remap a few things. Mm-hmm. So just like you, I'm looking forward to the release notes for the April moment to find out kind of the core. But the core vision, I think, still stays, right? Portal's value proposition is quick go-to-market solutions to enable external web experiences to be delivered on top of Dynamics, data, and allow somebody to self-service on that. What we can do to improve that experience is letting our, kind of the developer, the customizer, right, to customize that experience easier. So investments in like what you're seeing as the preview launch for that Portal content editor, right? So being able to easier and faster style, edit content, publish content through the portal. Mm-hmm. I think the investments there will continue to make sure you have a great maker experience for Portal.
Right. Yeah.
The other one is there's a lot of flow of like tickets and issues that have to do with common problems that you might not know. Like if you delete a homepage, your portal is probably not going to work.
Right.
How does that happen? Accidental slip of a mouse and somebody deletes something, or as you're moving data, you forgot to grab an extra row in Excel as you're importing that if you're doing it manually. Mm-hmm. And boom, you can very easily do a couple things. So we know what potentially a couple quick check things are that we can implement. Maybe a self-service experience, and I think that's up and coming, still being in development, where you have kind of a quick health check, where you go to maybe a portal administrator page and say, hey, give me a rundown of common things that could be missing. Right? Oh, you deleted the content page off the homepage.
Right.
Or like a couple things that we know really clearly that you can self-service yourself and not have to wait, call support, wait for the engineer, talk to the engineer, have them do investigation, and then finally come up with, oh yeah, you want to maybe put back the homepage.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, some of the troubleshooting stuff that's in there now, it's already saved me a couple times or saved me opening a ticket and having to go through that process.
Yeah. And support is way overloaded, I think, as well. So this will just allow support to be much more targeted on the big incidents that exist out there.
We got a lot of things in support as well where it's the customizations, right? And the customer doesn't know what their customizations are. I mean, we'll do our best to triage those experiences, but just prepare that's going to probably take days.
Yeah.
And if you got a production issue, you're probably very unhappy. Interesting things can happen. I don't think anybody's happy in those scenarios when it's taking a long time to figure out, well, what's the problem?
Right. Oh yeah.
So self-service, stability, making it easier to customize, making it easier to maintain alive and healthy. Portal, I think, is going to be there. But I think from platform team side, we're looking forward to driving further innovation. I don't think there's a Power App session that doesn't end with, what about the customer story?
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's what we're invested in right now by pulling it into the platform.
Yeah. So an interesting thing about pulling it into the platform, we have all these first-party apps, and we've actually kind of seen the results of a first-party app implementing the portal in terms of the marketing team has implemented the portal from theirs. And they've done some interesting things within that portal that might not be so accepted by the actual team.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. I guess, how do you feel like that this is going to go now that like a customer service is not necessarily going to be attached directly to the portal platform team, and they might do some interesting things just like an ISV or a partner might do, and the supportability of those?
Well, I think we need to build, continue a number one focus, if you listen to anybody in the platform team or from engineering, reliability and fundamentals investments. So we'll continue those to make sure it's a durable platform. In terms of who makes what choices, I hope people make the best choices always in how they design and build things. But I think there's history and dynamics of us cheating and building our own hard coding things. And I think we've seen a good movement away from that. And I think like Unified, where we're building things and some of these dialogues that were never customizable now, when they'll be rebuilt and unified, they'll be built more in the customizable framework, right? We don't have little secret things that are happening that we kind of hard coded, and that's seen with portals. I think there was a move to take some of these things out of server side pages into web templates, for example. That's going to continue.
That's huge,
I would encourage the field and the channel and the customer base to maintain and add pressure to the workload teams, customer service, sales, field service, right? You want to self-schedule board on field service, you should continue and ask questions in public and private forums and your customer advisory boards, your CRM ideas, to push and say, I want self-service, self-schedule capability for field service for my customers. That's important to me, and make that heard, make that mean, because the field service team needs to invest and build budget into it to go put that in their workload. The platform team, right, that owns portals now, will make sure that they have the right tools to support building those experiences. But in one way, it's great news, but you have to stay on us.
Well, yeah. Well, I think this is a good point to highlight the fact that, and we on the MVP side, we try to influence, and Microsoft sometimes listens to us, sometimes not. But for everybody else out there, again, it would be great if the portals could do ... There is the Ideas site, which ironically is built on portals.
Yep.
So I'll make sure that we have that in the show notes, that link to that, because you can put your portals ideas there.
Yep.
And Nikita, you're sort of a little on the other side of the fence, because I know that we all know that those ideas do get looked at if they get upvoted enough. Maybe, do you have any tips on how people could actually put in their ideas, or what's a way to get attention to that?
Okay. Well, you can definitely do campaigns for, hey, vote for my idea, and have people within your organization will vote it up, and the customer, be fair about that. But one is, make sure the title is succinct and makes sense. So formulate your ideas as succinctly as possible and provide more examples of why it matters, right?
Yeah.
So a complainy reading tone of an idea probably is not going to get much attention versus a very succinct, straightforward feature request that says, just make up one. I need editable grid experience on portals.
Right. Yeah.
And here's the scenarios where that's important to my end users and my customers. And it's extremely challenging for me as a partner to build that with a lot of unsupported off-platform things with companion services that I have to build. It's quite a steep curve for me, and I really formulate that pretty well. And then I go and campaign that around my partners, and go and campaign that around when I see forum questions about editable grid, I say, hey, that's, we don't have that yet. All the other answers, and then at the end, hey, please help us as a community vote this feature up.
Right. And I think I've seen ideas, on Portals specifically, but also like in Dynamics as well. And I know this is more of a Portals focus, but those ideas I've seen, hey, that would make a great ISV product, or that makes for a nice little project for me to put together at some point for either my own projects or things like that. And we talk about like the editable grids or something, and I do have a pseudo requirement for an editable grid, so I have to actually put something together with that. So, which would be a bit of fun.
Good luck.
Yeah, I know. Anyways,
It sounds simple.
It sounds simple, but I know it's not.
Keep asking more questions about what it means.
Yeah. Even the editable grid in Dynamics, I think there's a certain amount of patience, because I know that was a feature request even in the CRM3 days, and it finally was 2015, 2016. So things do come around. But yeah, so I would say just, by putting it on the idea site, doesn't necessarily mean Microsoft might act on it, but some other ingenuitive person in the community might. And there's a lot you can actually do with the Liquid in the HTML if you get creative. I'm not saying an editable grid per se.
Definitely not.
But
for the record.
But I can give a very specific example. With if you're building an entity list, and I need, with an entity list, you have to drill down into the entity form. So if you do something like, let's say, class registrations, I'm looking at an entity list of class registrations. I don't want to drill down to my class registration record. I want to drill down to the class. Mm-hmm. And I remember back in the ADX 7 days, we actually, we had to build a custom web template to do that. And it's something that'd be great at the entity list we can configure to do that. And then what I ended up doing recently is I actually built, using HTML and using site settings and things like that, using Liquid, kind of got that functionality built in. But that was a case of I kind of put it out there to Microsoft. I had feedback from Microsoft. Why would you want that? What is the use case? Mm-hmm. And I gave that specific use case. Here's what we want to do. Oh, okay. Now that we understand it, we have the context around it. And then in the meantime, as I learn more about portals and things like that, it's like, okay, well, here's something. Now with the knowledge I have, I can kind of build my own. I wouldn't even call it a workaround. It's just a different approach to a solution. But again, a lot of that is that community, that information that's being shared out there, and kind of inspire folks to do stuff.
Yeah. So in terms of community, Nikita, where do you think is the current community? Like, where's the go-to spot that people should kind of learn about portals or talk about portals?
That's a great, almost curveball. Yeah, because I think, in Legacy we had the community.adxstudios.com, right? It was kind of the home place, and you can still find a lot of great, Liquid samples, or like a common overlooked feature, by the way, is entity form metadata. Mm-hmm. So scroll down past the 300 fields we have on that thing, down to the subgrid that says entity metadata, click new, and just look at that.
Yeah.
Because you can go, like, you want to have a radio button for an option set instead of a drop down. That's there.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yes. You want to have your lookup be a drop down? That's there. Like, there's a lot of things there. And you're going to find a lot of that stuff on, like, that old community website. I think the new one is in the Dynamics community. Like, I don't even know the proper name of it off the top of my head. I have to pull up my own resources slide.
Yeah, we'll try to get that into the show notes as well.
Yeah, so there is one there. If anything, I could encourage the overall community is knowledge share. Continue blogging, continue your videos. I don't know if anybody reads white papers anymore. I think that's long form text, but I think we're being asked to build a portal's best practices white paper. And I kind of always push back on that and say, I think what we need is a series of articles, a class on maybe Microsoft Learn that talks about some basics in that. And I actually I don't take responsibility, but I sympathize with the lack of official Microsoft training that's there for portals. For now, fantastic partner opportunity and training opportunity for others. I think we have to address that on the new Microsoft Learn platform.
Right.
But as a community contributor, I definitely encourage people as you experience your portal projects. I mean, even simple stuff like widgets. Like I know, for example, our pre-sales community within Microsoft, they're kind of building a knowledge share area around like, hey, I need a carousel. A carousel is a set of images that rotates. Well, you can go to Bootstrap and jQuery and like within a few Bing searches away from copy and pasting some of that.
Right.
But making having a place where I can go and look for like common requests or common customizations for my team. So that's definitely what I would encourage, like that center of excellence within your partner or a customer project team to have is like I've learned this little neat thing. Like even Bootstrap, like you wanted to have nice tabs or like a little section. Just go to Bootstrap and look at what's already included for some of those common UI elements that you might not even know. Like if you want to build your own like alert area, well, there's actually a class for alert that looks really nice. Mm-hmm. And down the road, if you're changing your Bootstrap theme, like there'll be a class name and the person building the style sheet would know that, hey, I have my alert, error, or information, like message box. And there's a class for that, and there's a UI element for it. You don't have to build one from scratch yourself. So you can kind of use what's in the box.
Yeah.
But if you're not new to blogging, or it's not Twitter-sized content, but somewhere between Twitter and a full blog post, I think there's still space for like portal widgets type of a listings. Like, hey, I was looking at portals. Here's a neat way to do a carousel. There's probably 17 ways to do a carousel on it. But here's one you can safely copy and paste, and it's going to work with our Bootstrap theme.
Yeah.
For
all
example.
of those JavaScript libraries.
Yeah.
Millions of
I mean,
them.
I reference. I mean, a lot of your guys' blogs and things like that. Like Colin's example on that chart, right? He's using Chart.js and has basically a liquid page that you do a fetch query to do, and now you have a fantastic looking chart.
Right.
Like, that's just a couple little elements and building blocks you put together. Yeah, it's going to require that web front end person with some of those skill sets, but. There's an opportunity for both the community and vendors to build like portal widgets and things like that. And that's what's going to get your name out there. So for partner differentiation, having a repeatable, like, hey, here's a chart collection.
Yeah.
And here's like a reference for like, here's how you use it. And basically building like a little micro widget accelerator, whatever the terminology could be for it.
It's a workload now. That's the buzzword.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually an interesting prospect of maybe even a widget store for the portal that partners and ISVs could build and participate in. So.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
Because if you like our SharePoint, integration, your next question are like, hey, but I also want that to go in a very specific folder, and I want to have different files. And like somebody just asked me after this session at Extreme here was like, hey, what about antivirus check? And I was like, that's a great question. I have no idea. Like if those kind of things are important to you, like that's definitely like partner opportunity. I mean, I hate saying this because it's like it sounds like feature deflection, but it really is because customers have diverse needs, and it's really hard to address all of them for us.
Well, and not only for the community as a whole too. Like I've seen sessions like an XRM toolbox sessions. Let's throw out some ideas, and I would love for someone to build an XRM toolbox. Here's the opportunity, guys or girls, to build this, is to have a nice interface to build web forms. Web forms in the portal are a royal pain in the butt. So
entity forms or web forms,
the
wizard process.
Yeah, the wizard process. You get all the web form steps, and you got to backtrack, and then
it's like you have to whiteboard the experience before you start.
You need a visual tool for it.
You should visually lay it out and make sure that they can accomplish what you need.
It's one of those things that I actually have to go into Visio first in order to successfully build the web form out properly.
All the conditions and everything.
And all the back, and then the numbering and the scheming. Anyways, that's just a little aside.
But actually funny, that's been something the ADX Studio team had requested of the ADX Studio team probably 3 or 4 years ago, but it just never got built.
Saw the light of day.
Yeah.
So the opportunities, guys, XRM Toolbox authors out there, if you do that, there's a frosty beer waiting for you at the next conference. So we're actually getting close to time here, Nikita. Was there any last thoughts or things you wanted to share with the community?
Well, I'm trying to be sensible to. I always feel like I'm preaching. I'm like, I don't want to be too preachy, but I'd say think of the customer, right? If you're an implementer or if you're a seller and you're thinking of portals, I think it's fantastic to showcase our technology. A portal should be in every demo of Dynamics, and then further discussion should follow on that. But as you're implementing, think of the customer after you leave. Hopefully you built in a relationship post that experience. Yep. I think what I find is challenge your customer on investing in documentation and proper requirements. I think I see a lot of problems with like this Agile approach of, we don't have requirements, we have user stories. Well, good luck with your user stories when you have an active issue. Mm-hmm. That's not a requirements of what this form and customization and plugins, and it's a systematic problem, I think, with an approach to project delivery and execution. And I'm not blaming the implementers, I'm blaming the customer not wanting to pay for documentation. Yeah, the system should be self-documenting. Well, good luck with that again. Right? Yeah. And I think that's where what I mean by like think about the customer and think about what's going to happen after you leave, especially when you make those customizations, right? Like, do you have a support matrix? Do you have a knowledge transfer of like, hey, this case create form that's got that part lookup that calls the external system? You know that. The person you're working with know that, but it's a hot space right now. In fact, your customer that you would have worked with picked up enough Dynamics for them to be actively recruited to be a Dynamics consultant in a very short future. Like that's how busy the space is, and the person who just built it might work 3 partners later at a different place already. Yeah. So that knowledge just leaves the moment the project concludes, but the customer is stuck with it. So think of the customer in those senses.
They have to maintain it.
Yeah, the maintenance and kind of like the impact on that, and my unpopular saying, like, it's okay if portals is not a fit. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, I mean, just think of the customer. I've seen places where partners are like, no, I have to have the Microsoft Dynamics portal be part of the deal because that's going to be my services opportunity, and they have a digital agency sitting here just chomping at the bit to kind of come in and do the custom portal. Well, in 2 out of 3 scenarios, that's probably the right move. Also, because you're going to split the responsibility. Right, the digital agency will build a custom portal. You'll build them the fantastic web API front end for Dynamics because you understand Dynamics really well, and you have very clear roles and responsibilities of who owns what and where the responsibilities lie. So I see more and more scenarios where I look at the customer requirements and I'm like, there's no way. Like this is just not a fit, guys. I'd love for us to be a fit. It's not that the product is not fantastic. It's just what some customers want to do isn't the fit. So kind of take a little bit of pride, and there'll be always more services opportunities like Power Platform and things like that for you as a partner to grow into. So kind of don't shove portal projects into everywhere.
Well, it's the right tool for the right job.
Right tool for the right job. Exactly. There's still expertise that you could add as a partner.
Excellent. Cool. Well, thanks a lot, Nikita, for joining us today. We'll probably have to get you back on in some time, and then maybe when the April release notes surface, we might want to bring you back in and discuss that. And hopefully, there's some cool stuff coming. It's been like I always joke at these conferences, the Microsoft keynotes are always there's no better time to be a Microsoft partner or things like that. But it is a lot of fun to be working in this industry. So, Nikita, if anybody out in the community wants to kind of ping you on something or kind of follow what you're doing, is there any? Are you on the social medias in any way?
Well, funny enough, like my own website literally has had an error for like the last 2 years, so I don't have a blog. But definitely find me on LinkedIn. Okay. That's kind of like long form, like communication requests are probably good for that. You can probably figure out my Microsoft email. That's not going to be very hard. Nikita.Polyakov@Microsoft.com is probably a good guess. But if you wanted to reach out kind of socially or kind of share what you're doing, I'd love to add your fantastic content to my resource stack when I show it. So let me know who you are, and I am on Twitter as well, Nikita P, Nikita P. So we'll put that in
Cool.
show notes. But
for
that's
sure.
a good way to get a hold of me.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, Nikita. And Colin, if people want to kind of reach out and get to you, I think we started at the start of the episode, but I think traditionally we have to follow the format. So
the formats, right. So I'm on LinkedIn as well. My blog is my name, colinvermander.com. And of course, Twitter, Collin, Koolin, and an underscore at the end, because somebody took Collin before me.
right.
Yeah.
We're going to have a whole episode dedicated to that. So, and my name's Nick Dolman. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. And my blog is readyxrm.blog. And my Twitter is at readyxrm. And in terms of listening to portals and terms of learning about portals, I know Colin's doing a session tomorrow here at Extreme, so I doubt that this will be dropped before that, but so if you have a time machine, come back, check that out. I'm also putting on a portals course in hopefully in the UK in January. We'll see about that, and looks pretty much everything's been, just got to sign a few papers, but it'll be in the UG Summit in Amsterdam. I will be doing a portals course as part of the academy there. So that's a great opportunity for people to learn portals as well, and kind of cooking up a few other places around the world. So if you are interested in learning about portals and you have a whole bunch of friends, reach out to me. So thanks again, and big shout out to Sean Tabor, who still missing in action. We're not sure. We'll find the Serum Hobbit eventually, get him back. Bring him back home to the Shire. He's maybe halfway through Mordor right now. All right, thanks everybody. This is Refresh the Cache, and we'll be back to you very soon.
Thank you.
This has been Refresh the Cache, the Dynamics 365 Portals podcast from CRM Audio. Check out this and other podcasts at crm.audio. If you have any questions about portals for the team to answer, please send them to voice at crm.audio. You can subscribe to the CRM Audio network of podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, or any place else the fine podcasts are offered. This is a production of Dynamics Podcast LLC.